invest in yourself. When you invest in yourself, it opens up so many more opportunities. As someone that teaches offensive security trainings at different conferences, at first it might seem expensive, like, oh my God, this training is $1,000 or $5,000. It's all relative. But making that investment is going to have a much significant return, whether it's being able to land a new job or position, right? It might lead to a promotion, or it could just lead to other career opportunities to help expand your knowledge, skills, and abilities. So first and foremost, invest in yourself.
This is Hackers to Founders, a podcast about cybersecurity professionals who have reached the pinnacle of their cybersecurity expertise and have ventured into new frontiers, whether it's launching innovative startups or making impactful investments in our industry. My name is Chris Magistrato, and I'm a vulnerability researcher best known for traveling and meeting hackers from all around the world. And I'm using what little extrovert skills I have to introduce to you hackers that are changing the world. All right, welcome to another exciting episode of Hackers to Founders. I'm your host, Chris Magistrato, and today we're here with a very special guest that has an incredible background in cybersecurity and entrepreneurship. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just getting into the world of cybersecurity, this episode is packed with insights that you won't want to miss. Today we have Hannah Latonick, a cybersecurity powerhouse with over 18 years of experience working across both offensive and defensive cybersecurity operations. Hannah is currently serving as a director of security research at Dark Wolf Solutions, where she's led innovative efforts in cybersecurity, software development, and digital transformation for both federal and commercial organizations. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. She has also expertise that spans reverse engineering, exploit development, machine learning, and much more. She has been featured on cybersecurity subject matter on national outlets such as Fox Business News, ABC, US News and World Report, and many others. On top of that, she's also a DEF CON CTF finalist, placing on the top 1.5% of some of the hackers worldwide. Her team recently tied for first place in the 2023 DEF CON IoT CTF. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Continuing to prove that she is at the top of her game in the cybersecurity world, she also teaches offensive security workshops at some of the most prestigious cybersecurity conferences such as Black Hat, DEF CON, Ring Zero, and B-Sides. She got her certificate all the way to back that up too with her CISSP, CEH, and her certificate Android exploit developer. What we'll be talking about today is showcasing some of the remarkable things that she's done in her cybersecurity journey, capture the flag competitions, government contracting, her work at Dark Wolf Solutions, her entrepreneurship ventures, personal stories and insights, and advice for aspiring cybersecurity professionals. So with that, we'd like to welcome you to the show. Welcome to the show, Hannah.
Thank you, Chris. I'm excited to be here. Really looking forward to our discussion today.
Great. Yes, me as well. And I tried to listen to all the things that you said to omit in your introduction, and I tried to bring that back and have it flow in through this episode. So I hope that helped a little bit.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that you've done your research.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm getting better at doing research. I remember when I first started, it was just kind of let me just talk and ask questions. But now it's I want to know more about, and I want to get the threshold of you know too much about me versus this is an appropriate amount.
It's striking that balance. You don't want to come across as a stalker, right?
Yeah.
Well informed.
Yeah, exactly. I do really like this this guy who does podcasts or interviews. He does interviews, Nardwar. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's he's a Canadian. He's maybe a bit on the spectrum side of things, where he's very interested and excited with the guests. I thought this was a bit, but it's actually his personality. He's been doing this since he was 13 or so, and he would research the guests so well that he would ask them questions, and some of them are hip hop artists, and they're how do you know about that question mark and stuff, and but then it's always jovial and it's nice and sweet. So now that the community knows that those are the interviews that he does, where he does a lot of research, they really like it and stuff like that, and he brings up a lot of really happy memories. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it's like Sean on Hot Ones. He does fantastic research on his guests and comes up with very unique questions to make it interesting.
Yeah, it's just it's a great series. I think recently they've talked about selling the show, and they have to sell it with him or something like that, and his fee's really high. So it's something to check out and watch. But yeah, so would love to hear more about you and your journey. On the episode with Omit on Mobile Hacking Lab and his podcast, you spoke a lot about how you got into cybersecurity, but I wanted to hear a little bit more about like growing up and stuff like that. So maybe even before cybersecurity was even a thing, and like where are your earliest memories to like how you started moving and getting more into even computers and then maybe cybersecurity.
Yeah, so at a very young age, I was exposed to computers. We only had one computer at our house, right? Family of 5, one computer in the living room. And so I just clearly remember when my dad brought that home, and I was like, what is this like magic box? But also like he went back to school later in life after having a family. He was studying like computer engineering technology, and as he would work on his homework, he was always tinkering with the computer. And so whether it's like taking it apart, for example. And so I was just very curious, but also wanted to help him with his assignments. So I was like, hey, Dad, what are you doing? Like, can you tell me a bit more about what's going on here? And I just became very curious and fascinated with computers and their peripherals and related equipment. And so in middle school, usually you'd have like extracurriculars, and there was a computer club. It was hosted by the head of the IT department at our middle school. And so he was pretty much teaching us about how to use a computer, how to take care of it, like how to maintain it, how to clean it. And he would open it up and we would talk about all the different components. And so with that, I was like, oh, this is amazing, right? I could be in this club all day instead of going to class. And then from there in high school, still quite intrigued by technology, and I wanted to have a summer internship like related to computers. So I went to the IT department. I was like, I know we don't have an IT program for students, but I want to start one, and I want to be your first intern because I just want to learn as much as I can about information technology and networks. And from there, I just learned about the different types of engineering disciplines, especially as you're trying to determine what college to go to, what degree you want to get. I came across a magazine that had described computer engineering. And
do you know what magazine that was?
Oh man, I have to go back, but I do not recall at the moment. But after this, I'll look it up.
Sure.
But essentially, it was like an educational magazine, and it was discussing different types of engineering disciplines. So when I saw the description for computer engineering, I was like, that's what I want to do for a career, and that's why I want to study in college. So I would say that pretty much helped put me on the track that I'm on today. And as I was going through college, right, I studied bachelor's, master's computer engineering, I was really drawn to network security. So those were like the electives that I selected, and was really shaping my degree towards that subject. So from there, I was like, okay, what type of career can I go into that involves network security? And I had the opportunity of getting a college internship with a defense contracting firm that had essentially introduced me to what's now known as defensive cyber. But at the time, it was called information assurance, and we were responsible for securing the computer network infrastructure for different naval fleets. So that was like my first introduction to what is now known as cybersecurity today.
Very cool. Did you, when you had that position, did it require a clearance, and did they help you with that, or was it no clearance at the time?
So they put everyone through in for clearance, okay, even interns. But I would say a good portion of my work was unclassified, but
okay.
After working there for several years, was able to start getting introduced to classified work as well.
Okay, very cool. How many people were in this company? I'm very interested in learning and hearing about the different departments and stuff like that, and how big the team was and everything.
So, I mean, it's one of the, I'd say, probably top 5 defense contracting organizations today. But I would say for my team at the time, there was probably a dozen of us within that particular program, but we were within a larger department. It was like the platform security department. So.
Okay, got it. And then how were you able to get that first, your foot in the door at that first job? Did you know somebody, or did you apply through the normal process?
So I would say the internship essentially led to the employment opportunity with that particular employer. Yeah. But I would say the way I came across that internship was through actually I would say collegiate partnership program. It's called Inroads, that helps to expose women and underrepresented groups to a variety of different engineering fields, and not necessarily just restricted to engineering, but a variety of sectors, both business, finance, medicine as well. But I was on the engineering track, but it was essentially, that was I would say, a very key moment in my career, and that it really set me up for success and the career track that I'm currently on.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. And how you mentioned that you had taken a few courses even before you got the internship, learning more about cybersecurity. Do you remember some of the assignments or things that you're like, I really like this. This is fun, where it started to bring that energy into what you were looking to do in the future?
Well, for me, since I was drawn to network security, it was really the encryption side of things, like the cryptography.
Yeah, very cool.
Growing up, I always had a knack for solving puzzles. Mm-hmm. And so for me, cryptanalysis was also very fascinating. And I just remember just spending time trying to solve different crypto puzzles. And so in learning about network security, the use of VPNs, how to protect and secure a network, as well as secure wireless access points, I just found that very intriguing, because I knew that there was an element of cryptography involved. So yeah,
and even talking about like wireless networks, so at the time, is that when like WPA2 was becoming more popularized, or is that still like WEP, or even before that? I think that was
still, WEP, yeah.
Okay.
WEP.
Yeah.
I don't mind dating myself. It's okay.
Okay, I remember I remember when I was first learning about like Wi-Fi hacking modules. I'm like, okay, if it's WEP, like take it down, like you can easily hit, like do something with them. Like, okay, great. But then like it was at the time, it was in that area where like they were like phasing out all the devices to even have WEP, unless it's like such an old device. So like you look around, like there's nothing there. It's all WPA2. I was like, oh, okay, like I missed the entry part where this was supposed to be real easy, but I don't know. Fun nonetheless. Okay, so then how did you get into doing CTFs and going through that route as well? Wow.
Yeah. So coming up on this is a very interesting part of my career, because I'm like at the 10-year mark with a lot of like key events. So my first CTF was back in 2014. I had received a call from a headhunter about an offensive cyber opportunity down here in Florida. And so that brought me down to this area. I was working with another defense contracting firm, and the team that I was working with was quite involved in CTFs. And so after work, we would just have, we'll just call it CTF night, whether they were training for one or competing in one. And so pretty much I was like, let me see what this is about. Sat in on one, loved it immediately, found myself, I would say, hacking with the guys till like 3 a.m. And I was like, hey, I really should consider doing this on for an extended basis, right? Not just like that one night. And so I just kept showing up to the different events. And from there, essentially what I didn't realize was many of those different CTF events were preparing for DEF CON quals, right? That's one of the largest CTF events of the year, next to the DEF CON finals. And so the team had asked me to compete with them for DEF CON quals. So I joined the team, and we were one of the top 20 that were selected. At the time, there was over 400 teams competing worldwide. And so as a part of the top 20, we were invited to DEF CON CTF finals. That's their main stage CTF event. So that was my first DEF CON introduction, my first time in Vegas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so it was a very awesome moment. So, and pretty much from there, it just got hooked from competing. At the finals, we came in 6th place, which was amazing. And yeah, I would say that was definitely a key moment in my CTF career.
So it was the same team with Jordan Wines, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. So many of you might know them as Vector 35, the creators of Binary Ninja, but we all worked together down here in Melbourne. So we were actually, we call it Binja. So it was one of our CTF tools, right? It was our internal capability that we were using. It was sort of like our competitive advantage in CTFs. And so, we would often utilize Binja throughout the competitions. And, it's great to see that Jordan, Peter LaFosse, Rusty Wagner, Alex Taylor, and those guys have now, created a company around it, and it's been very successful. So it's definitely, when I look back on it, an awesome experience of having that exposure, back in the day before, people really knew what Binary Ninja was all about.
Yeah, that's super exciting. And also, for it to be your first DEF CON as well as your first time in Vegas, I've heard that when you're doing the CTFs, you're just doing the CTFs. There's not much running around. You're not so much sleeping. The way that Jordan had explained it, he was like, it's almost militant, where it's you get people, at a certain point, people have to organize with the people because it gets so big, and it's my goodness, it doesn't sound like it's a relaxing environment. Did you have any time to relax while you were at DEF CON that first time, or was it just all work? Or play.
Let's just say we work hard to play hard, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. When you're competing in the CTFs, especially the main stage CTF, that's your primary focus, right? So didn't really get to explore Vegas. I'm not really a gambler, but didn't get a chance to kind of walk through the casinos. But it's okay. It's too much smoke in the rooms. But we were just very disciplined, and so usually the CTF will end at a certain time, so we try to collect as many artifacts as possible so that we can continue our analysis, we'll say offline, right, after hours. So we're back in the hotel room again, reversing and hacking until 2-3 in the morning, taking a quick nap before it starts back up at 7 or 8 o'clock. So usually we would have runners to go out and get food for us, because
that's crazy.
We're not getting, the only time we're getting up is to use the bathroom, right? But other than that, you're in your seat, you're competing, because every single minute counts during the competition, because it's a short period of time to try to collect as many flags as possible.
And during that time, was there a limit on how many people that could be on your guys' team, or was it kind of relaxed and there wasn't a limit?
I think there was a limit, and I think there was about 6 of us competing, because they have 20 teams. They have so much real estate in the room that they have us in. So I think there was, but I know in past CTFs there weren't team size limits. So I remember hearing stories about one team would win, and you would think 6 or 8 people go up on stage, and you just see droves of people coming into the award room to come on stage because they were back at the hotel, helping with the competition. So, but I would say with TTS today, they vary even at DEF CON. Some allow for unlimited team size. Others also, like the IoT CTF that we competed in last year, was restricted to 6. And then this year we competed in the 2024 DEF CON RFCTF, came in 3rd place, but that was also an unlimited team size. So for that, we had about a dozen or so competitors from Dark Wolf competing.
I have a question, the differences between the IoT and the RF. challenges? Is it more like reverse engineering firmwares for the IoT side of stuff, or is it similar in terms of like they also have like RF modules on both of them that you can compromise?
Yeah, so for the IOCTF, so there's actually been a split. So in the past, there would be a mixture of user space and maybe a little bit of firmware analysis. But last year, there was the IoT CTF and then the embedded systems CTF. So for the IoT CTF, it was still embedded devices, so routers, for example, but the vulnerabilities were still at the user space level, so in the software application. So whether it's performing a SQL injection attack, for example, or being able to send a particular type of request that will allow you to like leak the credentials, for example, from a service. So it's still application based. I would have preferred a little bit more low level, but I think that's the angle that the embedded CTF is trying to go towards. For the RSCTF, it was a mixture of digital and physical challenges. So whether we were trying to solve, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth challenges, SDR challenges, where you actually have to like capture the signal, do the demodulation, and then figure out what data is in the payload, trying to identify the flag. But they also had physical challenges where you had to like copy badge cards or go up to like infrared devices. And then what was really cool with the RFCTF is that they have fox hunts. So essentially they have, we'll just say, random people walking around the venue carrying some type of wireless or RF device. And as they're walking around, they're beaconing out a signal. So, we have pretty much different type of signal detection tools where we're looking for an RF signal or any other type of RF signal where as you get closer, you're going to get a faster hit. It's like, okay, we know this fox is somewhere in this area, and then you have to go up to them and ask a very specific question, right? So like, oh, are you the Wi-Fi easy fox, or are you the Wi-Fi hard fox, for example? So it was definitely a lot of fun, a unique experience, and never sprinted around a DEF CON facility so much in my career. So a lot of fun.
That sounds terrific. That sounds like a lot of fun, where you're actually going to physically run around and interact with that CTF. I remember one year there was like another type of like challenge. I think one of the villages designed it this way, where you would go and physically walk around and do lock picking challenge, and then boom, you get a key to go somewhere else, kind of thing. But that sounds super fun. Did you? But actually, I have another question about like the hardware and stuff like that, right? Did they let you guys know that like, hey, we're going to be on these types of spectrums for the challenges? Like, do you guys have devices for them, or is it just like, all right, hopefully you got the stuff for it? Yeah.
So there was one FM radio challenge where it was like, hey, we're beaconing off of like 88.5 FM, and you have to like find the person that's emitting on that signal, but also when you walk into the, I would say, CTF area, usually up front they have like a table full of different equipment, different antennas and systems that you need to hack into. And so there is an expectation that, hey, there's going to be physical equipment that you're going to have to interact with. And so you try to prepare as much as possible, looking at past challenges, looking at the RFCTF committee's website to see, okay, what type of equipment should we bring? Of course, there's always going to be surprises on site, but that's why there's a Best Buy down the street, just in case you need to go and like pick something up.
Got it. Yeah. I had my friends had hosted the scavenger hunt for DEF CON for I think over a decade or so, and it's the same type of energy where you have people bringing in ridiculous things like farm animals and stuff like that into DEF CON, and it's just getting really chaotic. But yeah, did they for either the IoT or the RF challenges, was there any like JTAG things where you had to like pull out the firmware, or was it like, here's the firmware, they just give it to you?
So they typically would give you the artifacts that you need. Possibly for the embedded systems village, they may have had a JTAG challenge. Don't quote me on that. But I can definitely see that being introduced more in the future.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you shifted over from working with the team for your DEF CON and winning numerous times, and then shifting over to Dark Wolf Solutions, or your next venture and journey after the DEF CON stuff.
Yeah, so I joined Dark Wolf Solutions in February 2023. So it only seems like a little over 18 months ago, but it seems like I've been there forever. We're definitely having way too much fun. As they say, time flies when you're having fun. But I currently serve as the Director of Security Research. So my team, we're focused on finding zero-day vulnerabilities across a variety of technologies, from major OS desktop platforms like Windows and Linux, down to embedded systems like routers and switches, even mobile devices. We primarily specialize in Android, and then everything in between as well. So it's been really exciting working with this team. I say what's refreshing is that a lot of the work that we do is unclassified, so we can actually talk about it, which is very refreshing. And so, like, with that, we do our research in support of the government as well, but we don't have as many of the restrictions, say if you're working on site at a customer facility. But with that, we're able to also work with vendors. We'll go through like a coordinated disclosure process, for example, if we feel like there's a vulnerability that should be reported, given its severity. And with that, we can then, of course, since we can talk about it, we'll write blog posts and just promote the work that we're doing as well, or present at conferences. So it's been a lot of fun, and what I really enjoy is just the variety of different targets and technologies that we work with, because there's always something new to learn. In addition, there's always new tools that are coming out. So yeah, it's been a fun ride so far.
And how big is your guys' research team?
So for my team, there's about half a dozen of us, so 6 of us. We all work remotely, and we usually find the smaller the team, the better. But we do also work very closely with our pen testing team and red team. They're definitely larger than us. I think maybe 2 dozen, almost 3 dozen. We're constantly growing. We just graduated from being a small business, so it's hard to keep track of how many of us there are now, right? So like when I joined Dark Wolf, for example, we were 230 pack members, right? We refer to ourselves as the Wolf Pack, and so now we're up to 350, right? So it feels like every single day there's someone new starting at the company, which is exciting.
Exactly, and that's where our company, Top Cleared Recruiting, comes in. Finding the right cybersecurity talent with the necessary clearances can be a major hurdle. Did you know that it could take 8 to 15 months on average to hire somebody with a TS SEI plus full polyscope? At Top Cleared Recruiting, we have a network of 1.3 million cleared professionals, ranging from C&O developers, reverse engineers, and data scientists. Whether you're working on offensive operations or data analysis, we connect you with the elite talent you need fast. Visit topclearedrecruiting.com and let us help you to find the perfect candidate, already cleared and ready to go. Very exciting. And those 6 people that are on your team, are you guys able to look at every single area that you spoke about, or are you guys just focused on the mobile side?
So we'll rotate, right? So okay. For the first year, I would say we were primarily more focused on the major OS desktop side of platforms. And then August, I'll just say like last fall, we pretty much decided, hey, let's dive into Android security research. There's a greater need here. So that's been our primary focus. But usually it's important to rotate targets because you can get burnt out on them. And so also, I don't want the team to feel like pigeonholed, like that's the only target they're going to work on for the rest of their lives. And so to keep everyone excited about the work, it's important to know when it's time to ramp down on a target and ramp up on a new one.
That's very important. I'm glad you actually brought that up, because as a recruiter, I've spoken to many people at companies, and then they're just like, I'm only doing research here, and like, it's not going to change. And I'm getting really, really tired of this. And like, I can't, like, even if I stay with the company, it's not like we're going to do anything different. So that's actually one of the reasons why they look to leave. And then I always phrase it as like, they're looking to grow their expertise and develop new skills and stuff like that when I present them over to potential clients. Because they get burnt out of looking at the same stuff over and over.
Absolutely. So I'm glad that we have that opportunity and privilege at Dark Wolf, because like you said, not many companies are willing to do that or have that flexibility to offer that to their employees.
Mm-hmm. And in regards to like you guys working on the private sector and also working with the government, like how much would you say, like if you know or are able to speak on like how much revenue comes in from the government and then how much revenue comes in from the private sector side of things?
So our portfolio is primarily made up of government contracts. I believe about 70% of our contract is in support of the Department of Defense as well as the IC. But on the commercial side, we have industry partnerships with Google. For example, we were actually selected as the 2024 DoD Partner of the Year.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Within Google's public sector. So we're a partner with their professional services organization. And so it allows us to apply our expertise in a different way in support of our customers, right? So being able to utilize the latest and greatest modern technologies that Google provides to help meet our customers' missions has been very exciting. And just again, another opportunity to learn about new tools and technologies, and just keeping our skills and our expertise sharp has been a lot of fun.
Okay. So are you guys utilizing Google's platforms for specific types of things to help you guys with other types of contracts? Or is it they also have products and things that you guys are pen testing or reversing as well? Or both?
Yeah, so it can vary, right? So, I mean, we are a Google shop, right? So internally we use like Google Workspace and say Gmail, Google Drive. Also, as we're developing different types of capabilities, we'll use Google Cloud or GCP, for example. When it comes to our customers, we'll look at how can we help our customer utilize Google's products and services in order to, for example, achieve an ATO, that's an authority to operate, right? So say that customer doesn't necessarily have the expertise to stand up their own infrastructure, or doesn't even know how to get started, but they know that, hey, we have this need, we need to get an ATO in order to provide our capabilities. How can we do that? Dark Wolf help, right? So we'll come in and we'll showcase, how we can utilize Google services to deliver the infrastructure and the environment that they need, that they know is compliant to cybersecurity regulations, and can help facilitate getting that authority to operate for that particular customer. Also, we're looking at other ways in which, so for example, partnering with Google, where if we're delivering a solution from scratch, right, we'll come up with a technical approach of this is going to be a Google-driven or Google-powered solution. So we'll stand up the infrastructure using GCP, and we'll deploy a variety of different services. Say, for example, just hypothetically, say we're standing up like a software factory, right? And it's going to have a CI/CD pipeline that's going to help host, build, and deploy a software application, right? How quickly can we get end users to develop an application that they can go through a vetted process that assures the security of that application and quickly deploys it to their end customer? So we'll work with Google in providing a variety of approaches to, in the end, help achieve our customers' missions faster, cheaper, and better with less risk.
Very interesting. I guess I have like two questions. Do you guys have not a lot, but do you guys have customers that need to build up their own software factories and stuff like that where they don't have anything built out yet?
Yeah, actually, so we work very closely with the Air Force and a variety of other DoD software factories, where we are building out the infrastructure or the platforms to help them rapidly build and deploy, we'll say, custom applications for their end users, or to quickly get capabilities to the warfighter.
Okay, got it. And then do you guys ever have prospecting clients or clients where they're like, we're using Azure or AWS and we want to utilize these platforms? Do you guys help them with those types of things, or do you guys talk to them about using Google's platform or something else entirely?
Yeah, so we also have industry partnerships with AWS and Azure as well. So we're pretty much certified across all major cloud infrastructures. And we do try to remain, I'll say, vendor neutral, right? At the end of the day, our core value is being customer first, right? So how do we offer the best solution at the best value to help achieve our customer's mission? And so whether that's using GCP, using AWS or Azure, we'll inform the customer of their options. We're very honest and transparent with our customers, which they find very refreshing. And so at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our customer is confident about the decisions that they're making and how they're investing their funds, knowing that it's going to lead to the solution that they're looking for.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you guys also work with companies to help integrate in terms of if there's like a merger and acquisition where they're like, we need to combine these two types of companies? Have you guys done that, or is that even in your guys' scopes?
I'm not sure of that use case in particular. What we often see is the need for modernization as well as cloud migration. So whether they're going from a legacy enterprise IT environment and they're like, hey, we now need to work in the cloud. How do we do that, right? Or maybe they were using one cloud infrastructure, didn't work out, and they're looking to move to another. We'll help with those situations. Or sometimes the customer will dictate, hey, this is what we want to go with. How do we do that? So, it'll vary depending upon the situation, but either way, I'd say we're prepared to help, and we're here to help our customers, achieve their missions as they need.
I believe it's like one of the most, it causes the most amount of risk in terms of like cloud infrastructures in terms of networks, because somebody will have like a Windows 7 computer and then bring it on the network, and then if they're setting up Kerberos, and the whole thing is like kaput. So yeah, very, very interesting. So how much in terms of like revenue would you guys see is on the contract side of working with companies that need these types of monitoring solutions and additional things to help set up, versus they need some security assessments, whether it be pen testing, red teaming, or vulnerability research?
So that's a tough question. I'll admit that I'm not too privy to the revenue side.
That's okay. Yeah, I like hearing the business side of things, but if we can also talk ton of research side stuff too if you want.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is this, is that you have to take a different approach when working with government versus commercial, right? They're different playing fields. There's different rules of engagement, but also there's different types of, I'll just say, pricing models that you can use, as well as different cost requirements. And so for us, it's important to, one, really understand the customer's requirements, what their budget is, as well as whether or not the return on investment is worth it, right? And so it's definitely a balance, and requires a good amount of strategy in figuring out how do we put forth the best proposal that is cost effective, right? What is our price to win, as we would say? And yeah, there's definitely a lot that goes into creating these different proposals so that it convinces the customer that yes, we have the experience and expertise to meet your needs within your budget, and having the confidence that we can deliver on time and within schedule.
And then how long is that process for the request for proposal to you hear about it wherever, and then to the part of the solicitation, and then you guys winning the award?
Yeah, so that can also vary per customer. I would say the typical timeline is that before there's even an RFP that comes out, there's an RFI, which is like a request for information. Yeah. And usually you're writing like a white paper in response to that. It could be a 2-page white paper, 5-page, 10-page. But
and how technical is these white papers? As you and I are researchers, like how technical are they? They
get very technical. Sometimes when it's a 2-page white paper, I have to take a moment and say, okay, how am I going to fit all of this in 2 pages, right? And so it's very important to be very concise, direct, and clear with your technical approach, because again, you don't have as much real estate. So it's really hitting them with what's the impact, the bottom line up front, and why they should care. And so, when that RFI goes out, it helps the customer or the government have a better understanding of what they should require in an RFP, helps them better understand the problem that they're trying to tackle, as well as the potential challenges and limitations that they need to anticipate if they do decide to move forward with an RFP. And so that could take months from the moment an RFI closes before an RFP is released. But as we're getting closer to an RFP, the customer will usually release a draft RFP. That way it gives vendors or suppliers an opportunity to better understand now what the customer is looking for, because there is going to be, let's say, some changes that happens between the RFI to the RFP. Usually the RFI responses are going to help shape the RFP that the government releases. So this is giving the draft RFP is going to give us a sneak peek of what they're going to require and expect, as well as the timeline or the period of performance for the opportunity, but also gives us the chance to ask questions. So usually there's like a Q&A period of like, hey, I saw this in the draft RFP. Can you clarify what you meant by this? Or, hey, you're asking for this requirement. Are you also expecting X, Y, and Z? Because that wasn't explicitly stated. So it's a chance for us to interact with the government to ensure that we're, quote unquote, all on the same page before the final RFP comes out. And that final RFP is usually released 30 or 60 days after the draft RFP.
Okay, got it. And then the communication that you guys have with them, is it like in a public forum, like industry days, or is it something else entirely?
Usually there's going to be a TPOC or a technical point of contact, as well as a KO or a contracting officer, and they'll usually serve as your 2 main point of contacts to submit your questions. Sometimes, depending upon the customers, they just want you to email a specific email address, or they might have an online form. And then what they'll do is they'll compile everyone's questions, they'll provide answers, and then they'll distribute out the final collection of Q&A. So that could be sent out over email or also posted online, whether via their website or to sam.gov, which is like the main marketplace, I'll say, for participating in federal contracting opportunities.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of reading in government contracting side of stuff. So sam.gov, USA Spending, GovTribe, and just looking at new tools and different types of pieces around there. So, and
for those that might not be familiar with what sam.gov is, right? That's the system for award management. It's a free website that you can go on to look at different federal contracting opportunities, but you do have to register. You do have to have a SAM profile registration, so that the federal government knows that, hey, you've been properly vetted and you're approved to do business with the federal government. So it's definitely, if you go that route, making sure that you're keeping your SAM registration up to date. I think you have to like renew it every 12 months or so. But it's definitely a core component of conducting business with the federal government.
Yes, 100%. And not just specifically in cybersecurity, but this is across everything and all things. And even if you're not a U.S. citizen, you are still able to do government contracting with the United States government. And you can even specify the agency and the location. So if you're in other countries, if you want to supply to different types of U.S. bases, you are also able to do so. There's a lot to say about government contracting stuff, but
that could be an episode in itself as well.
Maybe one day it will be. But yeah, so in terms of like the contracts, the awards that you guys specifically target, is it specific to like research, or is it like a gamut of things that are in the IT related area? I always get from somebody who's been on, I spent most of my time on the private sector side of things, so seeing things, and I would like to say that on the private sector side, cybersecurity and then IT is like almost considered completely different vectors and stuff like that. But in government, it feels very much close in terms of those types of things.
They're like siblings.
They're definitely like more sibling related. So when you guys apply to different types of contracts, do they directly say that they need research in a specific type of thing, or is it so general saying we need research, or how does that look in terms of the request for proposals and that stuff?
Yeah, so it can vary per customer and an agency, right? For some, they may release, for example, a BAA. That's like a broad agency agreement, and usually it's a notice from the government where they're requesting like scientific or R&D proposals, and that effort is not necessarily tied to the development or delivery of like a specific system or hardware. So those will definitely be more R&D based, developing proof of concepts, just proving out the feasibility of an idea or an approach. And then you also have like within different types of RFPs, they're usually for either services or system procurement. So when an RFP comes out, you're usually going to have like a statement of work or a SAL that'll describe the work that needs to be done by the contractor to satisfy the program needs. But you could also have what's called a SOO, or like a statement of objectives. And rather than having like very rigid requirements, instead the government customer is just going to provide very like high level objectives of a task or program. And so with that flexibility, it allows vendors like us to submit very like innovative and creative solutions, because it's up to us to figure out how we want to solve that particular problem. So sometimes instead of getting like a statement of work, the customer might actually release a SOO, which is a statement of objectives, where instead of like having very rigid and explicit requirements, instead the customer will actually put out very high level objectives of the task or program that they want you to complete. And so what's great about those types of opportunities is that it provides flexibility to companies like ours or vendors in general to propose a very like innovative and creative solution to the problem at hand, right? So it's almost like, hey, if you had a magic wand, what would you do? And so that really allows us to offer a solution that the customer may not have previously considered before. And then also other customers, instead of releasing a SAL, they'll release what's known as a PWS, or like a performance work statement. And that's typically used to acquire like professional services, right? So in that PWS, it is going to clearly describe the performance objectives and requirements that the customer needs to meet, right? So whether they're looking for software engineering services, pen testing services, systems engineering, even like test and integration or independent verification and validation services, it can vary, right? So for us, we try to identify many of these different opportunities so that we have like a diversified portfolio, and also just given the experience and expertise that we have and our talent, we want to make sure that we're going at the opportunities that align with us. But I would say primarily we go after those, like since we are a technology firm providing cybersecurity, digital transformation, and software DevSecOps services, that's typically what types of opportunities we'll go after.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So do you guys also get opportunities that you guys have to turn down because of certain types of things, like it doesn't fit your guys' business models or anything like that? Yeah,
I would say the one thing I'm find refreshing is that we do say no to opportunities. It's very easy for companies to say yes to everything and then figure it out afterwards. But we know that by saying yes to everything, it's going to dilute our services. It's going to, hinder us from, truly having the impact that we're looking to have with our customers. And so we're very strategic about the opportunities that we go after, making sure that, especially since we've just graduated from being a small business, right, we are going after more prime opportunities, and which, through that, we're looking for strategic partnerships with small businesses to pursue these larger opportunities. So yeah, it's definitely like, what I realize is when you say yes to one thing, you're really saying yes to a lot of things. And so, by saying no, it definitely saves us a lot of time, money, and headaches, and just frees us up to go after what we're really passionate about and knowing that we can help our customer achieve their mission.
Nice. And you mentioned working with smaller businesses to help to facilitate some of those larger opportunities for you guys to be primes. What are some of those opportunities that you guys help provide to the smaller businesses?
Yeah, so for some opportunities, they'll actually have small business requirements that are baked into the RFP. And so, with that, we'll identify small businesses that, knowing like, hey, we want to carve out, say, 30% of the work for a small business. So depending upon what those requirements are, we'll find businesses that align with them. But also there may be small business designations that we have to comply with as well, such as teaming with a woman-owned small business or minority-owned small disabled veteran business, 8A, hub zone. There's a variety of different designations for small businesses that these contracts will look for. And so even with the partnerships that we make, we're also strategic there as well, because we want to make sure who we're bringing on has the necessary experience and will essentially add value to the solution that we're trying to deliver, because we take our reputation very seriously. We're well known in the industry, and so we want to make sure we're bringing on a teammate that is great to work with and has a good reputation as well with the potential customers. So I'd say it's great learning about other small businesses and now being on the other side to see how we can partner together to help our customer meet their mission.
Beautiful. And if any of our listeners or people want to learn a little bit more about how to partner with you guys in terms of bringing their small business to work with you guys, do you guys have a platform or a way to do that?
Yeah, I would say definitely check out our website at darkwolfsolutions.com. I'll also give you my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me, either email or via LinkedIn, and we can start that conversation.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, great. And then what kind of contracts are you guys working on right now? And then we'll talk a little bit more about the future for Dark Wolf Solutions.
I would say on the security research side, one thing that's been a lot of fun is tag teaming with our pen test team to add additional, we'll say, security assessments to our customers, right? So for example, with pen testing, they're typically looking for known vulnerabilities in a network environment, web application, cloud environment, and so on. And so with the zero-day research that we do, we'll be brought in to provide a more low-level security assessment to see, hey, are there any potential zero-day vulnerabilities in, say, COTS products that our customer is looking to procure, for example, or they want to better understand the risks that might be introduced into their operational environments. And so it allows us to provide an even more comprehensive security assessment so that our customer better understands the security posture of the software or systems that they're looking to purchase or are currently utilizing. So that's been a lot of fun as well. And whether that's in support of the Air Force, we're also looking to expand those VRE or vulnerability research reverse engineering services into the Space Force as well. One thing that I'm really excited about is an upcoming direct to phase 2 CYBR opportunity. So a CYBR, for those that might not be familiar, is a small business innovation research. So CYBRs are essentially a federally funded program that provides essentially like equity-free funding for research and development by small businesses. And you might be saying, well, wait a minute, you just said you graduated from being a small business. So what's great about CYBRs is that they actually have headcount requirements. Usually if you're less than 500 employees, you can still be considered as a small business.
Oh, perfect.
Whereas for other opportunities, their threshold for a small business might be revenue based. So for us, we've exceeded the revenue threshold, which is a good problem to have, but there's still CYBR opportunities that we can go after. So with the CYBR process, there's typically 3 phases. Phase 1, you're focused on developing like a proof of concept. The phase 1 effort is looking to prove out the feasibility of a solution, right? It's usually shorter, like 6 to 12 months, and the funding that you receive is usually anywhere between like $50,000 to $275,000. From that proof of concept, assuming it all goes well, you then go to phase 2. And that's focused on like technology development and maturation. It's a longer contract, usually about 24 months, and a larger budget as well. So anywhere from $750K up to about $1.8 million. And assuming that goes well, right, you've actually matured your technology to a higher, what's called a TRL level, so technology readiness level. You could then be awarded a phase 3. And at that point, it's like a fork in the road. You can either decide to commercialize your product and sell it to the commercial market, or sell it within the federal marketplace. And so I mentioned that I'm excited about a direct to phase 2. So this is a unique opportunity where we've already developed a proof of concept for an automated static binary analysis tool that can find zero-day vulnerabilities in software before adversaries can exploit them. And so because we've already proven out the feasibility and the proof of concept showing that, hey, we've been able to successfully find 0 days in a variety of targets on different programs and supported different customers, we want to take this tool to the next level. And so we were recently at a pitch day event for the capability, and we were one of the 4 to be selected to receive what's called a customer memorandum. Essentially, it's an endorsement from the government saying, yes, we want to further invest in this capability to meet our mission needs. And so with that document, we're now eligible for an upcoming direct to phase 2 AFWorks opportunity, where, again, because we've already invested our internal research and development money into this product, we internally have completed phase 1, so now we can go direct to bidding on a phase 2 cyber solicitation. So definitely excited for that to come out. And thank you. And we'll see, if that leads to a phase 3, but definitely excited about what we've accomplished thus far, and very optimistic of what's on the horizon.
And how are you guys able to get that initial foot in the door for the first phase? Well, I mean, you mentioned that you guys had done research prior and were able to demonstrate that what you guys had done with previous customers was effective. How did you guys have that opportunity to then present it to the agency or the government?
Yeah, so for this particular customer, they had put out essentially an RFI and requesting a 2-page white paper on a capability. And they had different focus areas, and one of them was on the topic of vulnerability discovery and management. So we wrote a 2-page white paper about this capability, submitted it, and out of the 50 white papers that they received, we were one of the 12 that were selected to travel out and present during this pitch day event. And then out of the 12, we were down selected to one of the 4 to receive that customer memorandum. And so now we patiently wait for that direct to phase 2 solicitation to come out from AFWorks.
And did they specify the targets that they're kind of interested in looking at, or do you tell them, like, this is what we're good at these targets? Yeah,
I would say the latter. Essentially, it was a very brief RFI, pretty much just listing out the objectives that they were looking for and some of the features. But it was up to us to determine the response that we wanted to submit and what capability we wanted to highlight for that submission. So I imagine the entire time of developing that, there has to be pretty good communication between the person of contact there and you guys, so that way you guys aren't like going down a rabbit hole where it's like, we have no interest in that. Is there that type of communication, and how does that work? Yeah, so when they put the RFI out, they also announced that they were going to do a industry day webinar. And essentially that allowed them to further discuss the opportunity as well as hold a Q&A. And so that's where we could get additional insight to help inform and shape our response. Very cool. Very exciting. I love hearing more about this stuff. This is really interesting to me. I hope my audience also finds it as interesting as I do. I can talk about this all day. Okay, yeah, I'm very fascinated by the entire proposal process and everything. I'll try to keep the question not very basic and more like advanced and speaking to your expertise, so that way someone can just say, oh, just look that up. I don't want people to. No worries. Do you have any advice? I don't know if you're able to speak on this, or if you might know how this would be done, but would love to hear if you have any advice for any types of entrepreneurs that are interested in government contracting around the same industry, whether it be ideally in cybersecurity or in this area. Obviously, there's other areas too. If you're able to speak on, great. But at least in this area, if they're like brand new, they just registered on SAM, and then they're like, now what do I do? Do you have any insights on those types of things? Absolutely, several. So what I would recommend is. So the great thing about SAM.gov is that you're able to search for small business set-asides, meaning that only small businesses can submit a proposal to that solicitation. So large companies can't compete. This is strictly for small businesses only, which is fantastic because it gives small businesses a chance to support the government, get more involved, and better understand their priorities and needs. And through that, they can build that past performance, which can then enable them to go to a potential prime about an opportunity and say, hey, we've already worked with this customer through these previous contracts. We think that we can team up with you to help fulfill an upcoming need that they have. So that's one. Look for small business set-asides. Second, I would highly recommend contacting the small business offices of these different agencies and federal organizations, because they want to work with small businesses and they have a dedicated small business office to help facilitate that process. So they're going to have I'll say small business representative that can answer your questions and walk you through the process so that you're positioned for success. And then third, I highly recommend networking at different, I would say, government-related or government-sponsored events. For example, I'm here in Melbourne, also known as like the Space Coast, and we are a sponsor of the AFCEA Space Coast chapter. We actually were one of the founding members of it and helped to launch it to what it is today. And these events are so welcoming that they want people to come out to learn about, say, their different initiatives and how these chapters are helping to support the government. But what's great is that they bring in guest speakers from different agencies and federal organizations to talk about their mission needs. And so it's a great way to meet new customers or potential customers and learn about their missions. It's a great way to network with local companies that may already have an existing contract with that customer. They're coming out for support, or you might meet someone that is looking to partner with a small business. And so definitely check out the meetups that are happening in your area, or any sort of networking event that's being advertised on LinkedIn, for example, because you just never know who you're going to meet and who you're going to connect with that can open up the door to that next opportunity for you.
Yes, beautiful. I'm a big networking guy, and I always feel like I'm underutilizing my network capabilities, but I would love to run this by you. So it sounds like when you hear about these types of events, go out to them and then speak about 1 to 3 types of things. One of them, learning more about the initiatives that are going to be released and how a small business like your own could be able to help. 2, look for people with existing contracts, or ask them hey, are you in any current contracts right now that maybe you're looking for a small business to help you with. And then 3, asking, hey, are you interested in teaming with any small businesses for any areas that you're looking for? Does that sound about right?
Exactly.
The questions to move the conversation.
And I would also add, hey, what's coming down the pipeline in the next 3, 6, to 12 months. That way you can start preparing for that as well.
Okay. And then what kind of preparations would the small business then probably need to do? Start building out a team or having the conversations there? What do you think?
I would say having additional conversations, but starting to do research on those upcoming opportunities, right? For me, I definitely have I would say, a feed of different resources that I look at for customers, sort of like on LinkedIn, right? You can follow a company or follow a particular topic, and I'll use that to monitor what activities are currently occurring that lets me know, hey, I think an RFI is about to come out or an RFP is about to come out. And so it's sort of like doing that reconnaissance or OSINT, but you can also, knowing that, hey, something's coming up in the pipeline soon, as you're at these different events, just asking about, hey, are you familiar with this? I'm looking to potentially bid on it. Are you considering teaming? Things of that nature. But I would also add, go to conferences. Oh my goodness, this is just so underutilized. Going to different cybersecurity conferences or trade shows is invaluable, because oftentimes a lot of our customers are going to them as well. And so whether they're serving as speakers that you can then potentially interact with during Q&A or during a networking event, or oftentimes we'll have a booth and we're promoting our services, and so we want to meet other companies. And usually someone will come up to us, say, hey, this is, I specialize in XYZ. And it's like, hey, you know what? Let's go get coffee, like in the next hour if you're free. I'd love to talk to you more about that and how that could align with something we're currently pursuing. So it happens like all the time, but still not too many people are taking advantage on that or like capitalizing on that opportunity.
Yeah, you mentioned trade shows as well. Would love to hear a little bit more about that. What kind of trade shows are you referring to?
I would say not talking about like RSA, for example.
Okay.
But I would say a couple major conferences that we support. For example, we are a great partner with AUVSI. So AUVSI, they're the Association for Uncrewed Vehicle Systems International. They collaborate with one of our customers, which is DIU, it's the Defense Innovation Unit. And we work with them in support of the drone assessments that we perform, right? So DIU partners with the DoD to commercially vet drones for potential like operational use. And so AUVSI, they have an equivalent program called the Green Program. DIU has the Blue UAS program, but on Green UAS, AUVSI provides a more affordable alternative for like non-DoD customers. So if you have a commercial drone that you want to get out there, but again, not for the DoD, you can go through Green. But AUVSI puts on a variety of different conferences. And so in April, we were at Exponential, that was in San Diego, where we had a drone, like hacker drone workshop. Pretty much we walk you through, with no experience required, how to hack your first drone. We also had a Cyber City exhibit where people could come in advance to have us pen test one of a drone related equipment or any other device that they were interested in us assessing. But oftentimes we'll, at these conferences, we'll either be presenting something, holding a workshop, or like speaking on a panel. But through that, we get so much exposure where many companies come up to us saying, hey, we would love to partner with you, or hey, how can we bring you in to help us assess some of the equipment that we're working on. So Exponential by AUVSI, we actually have an event coming up, AUVSI Defense, in a couple weeks actually. Yeah, third week of October.
Very soon.
Yeah, I'll be up in McLean, Virginia, speaking on a cybersecurity panel. But again, that's another opportunity where we're getting our name out there. We might have different, I would say, spaces set aside to promote our services, but it's not salesy. It's more of like we're giving back to the community. We're helping to inform different companies of what we're doing, and if they're interested in working with us, great. If not, they're walking away with a lot of knowledge that they can take back to their employees. So there's that, and then for example, we were invited by Black Hat last year to host the first ever like autonomous arcade. So we were in the business hall and we had like 3 different exhibits. We had a drone obstacle course where you can learn how to fly and navigate these consumer drones. Then we had our drone hacking workshop where, again, you can learn how to hack your first drone, whether it's hacking the actual UAV, the unmanned aerial vehicle, whether it's the ground control station, which is the remote controller, or the communication link, the C2 link between the drone and the controller. And then once you go through that, you combine your skills together and you participate in our third exhibit, which was like the drone CTF, where you learn how to, well, pretty much it's a CTF where you need to hack the drone to fly it from point A to point B. And so with that, we had like thousands of people coming to like passing by, hundreds of people participating. And so going to these different large events have been very beneficial, and I would say a key factor to our growth. This past summer, we were in Vegas at DEF CON. We partnered with the Aerospace Village to offer a similar setup, as well as the Capture the Drone competition as well. And that was an even bigger success. So whether you're an exhibitor at these different conferences to grow your business, or attending them to figure out potential strategic partnerships, or just to better understand the landscape, the challenges, and the mission needs, go to conferences. Like, they're so valuable, and what you walk away with is definitely a higher return on investment than what it costs to attend.
You mentioned how it was a very big success for the Aerospace Village. For people that are very business focused, like maybe they only see like, I need an ROI, and it's probably very difficult to translate that ROI from I went to this and then I got a client and then we're now making this money or something like that. But like, what are the types of things, or KPI, I don't want to say KPIs, but like, what are some of the things that you can kind of attribute to like, oh, this was like a successful time for me to come to do this conference and network?
Yeah, so one of the direct things, as you mentioned, is usually we can tie a business lead that we received at the event to an opportunity that is coming down the pipeline that we can submit a proposal to, or it actually results in us getting a contract with that direct business, whether they're contracting our services to meet their needs. So that's definitely a direct one-to-one. Another is, so in addition to our events, we have a lot of publicly available resources that complement and supplement what we're doing, right? So for our different drone hacking workshops, we have our Drone Wolf playbook that people can go to. It's publicly available. It's at dronewolf.darkwolf.io. We'll send that to you. But it's a resource that provides an introduction to drone security, as well as our methodology for conducting these drone assessments. And so that's a free resource. We can see traffic that upticks, right? Whenever we go to these events, whether it's going to the Drone Wolf playbook, a lot of drones are now using Android, right? We have our Android security research playbook out there that introduces Android security and how we go through the process of finding Android vulnerabilities. We'll see a lot of traffic going to those two different playbooks. I call it ASRP for short. I'm used to saying that, but the Android Security Research Playbook, you can also get that at asrp.darkwolf.io. We'll give you links for that. But oftentimes we'll see that we'll get a lot of traffic there, but then we'll also start seeing customers talking about it. And so, for example, in one of DIU's recent publications, they had included our Drone Wolf playbook as a reference. And so with that again drives more leads our way, but also establishes us as a thought leader and subject matter expert in the field. And so there are, I would say, other dividends that we reap the benefits of down the road after these events that we can associate with, hey, because we did this event, here were like the sequences of activities that occurred that typically result in a contract being secured as well. Okay, beautiful. Wow. You explained that so well. You had also mentioned that for DIU, you guys were sponsored by them at a specific type of event too. Am I understanding that correctly? Yeah, so I would say, so you're probably referring to the NATO event. Yes. I would love to hear more about how that was engineered and how that happened. Yeah, so recently, this was back in June of this year, there was the inaugural NATO Ukraine Defense Innovators Forum. And it was in partnership with DIU, NATO, Brave One, and our Poland allies as well. And during that event, we were there for like a week, but we were invited by DIU to support this event, serving as cybersecurity judges for a UAS hackathon. So unmanned aerial system or aircraft system. Essentially, companies from around the world were invited to participate in what was roughly like a 2-day hackathon, including students from various universities. And so the idea was, hey, here's a representative drone that's being used out in the Ukrainian battlefield. Just imagine like a 3D printed frame, throw in there like a Raspberry Pi. What type of UAS capabilities can you develop in less than 48 hours? And it was amazing to see what the teams had engineered. So essentially there were different challenges, such as being able to create a capability that can visually identify, hey, there's an object in front of me. So detecting an object is there, identifying what it is, and then being able to track that object as the drone is flying, and then be able to perform other actions as well. And so the teams actually had to conduct a live flight test assessment to see how it would perform in the real world. And it was just, again, amazing what they were able to develop and innovate in a short period of time with a shoestring budget that can actually have some real world impact with the current conflict that is going on. So just seeing everyone come together, united by freedom, and just focused on the mission at hand was just a unbelievable and surreal experience. And it just reminds me of, why I work in the defense industry, especially within cybersecurity, because our national security is so vital to our everyday lives.
Definitely. I was actually I was on a podcast earlier this week, and they asked about, how, like, when you find a vulnerability, like, what do you do, kind of thing. And I said, like, earlier, I said that before, like 15, 20 years ago, you had hackers that were discovering vulnerabilities, and they were afraid of the repercussions of, like, what companies or even any government would do if you came and said, hey, I found these vulnerabilities, even if you came from a place of genuine, like, concern. And I said that we have a massive amount of trailblazers or hackers that, like, would work with the government and said, like, hey, we found some vulnerabilities in our own infrastructure and we want to fix these because I would rather come here and, like, put myself at risk in front of our own government than for another country to discover these vulnerabilities and actually cause a lot more chaos.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's great to see the different bug bounty programs that have come out. There's definitely a lot more independent security researchers that, can make a living just participating in bug bounty programs, selling to, like, ZDI, the Zero Day Initiative, as well as another great reputable resource. Enjoy working with them as well. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting seeing the evolution of, I would say, a security research as a whole, both within the government as well as industry acceptance as well. And involvement. So, right, with Google Project Zero and others.
You mentioned that the drones that they were building out and stuff like that, you had like a little Raspberry Pi and it was connected and they were building on top of that platform. Did these drones have any type of internet access? Because I know that some Pis have like Wi-Fi modules. Did you guys allow them to have like internet access in that scope, or was it was only specific to the device itself? Yeah,
so they did have internet access. We did provide them with a software environment and laid the ground rules, the rules of engagement for what was allowed within the software environment, as well as any potential like hardware modifications they may have wanted to make. But we wanted to make sure that it was a fair playing field, an even playing field. So we did allow them to have internet access because they had to explore and experiment with different types of software packages and open source tools that were out there to see what worked well, what worked well when integrated, and potentially what modifications they had to make to the different existing open source software out there to achieve the hackathon goals.
That's really exciting. So then now my brain's going towards like, okay, great. So if we have internet access, then we could probably start, utilizing some other types of machine learning processing stuff. And we just need to take an image and send it up and have it come back to us in a relatively quick type of way, right?
Sounds easy. But when you start putting that onto an...
Always easy in theory.
Right, in theory, yeah. But no, you bring up a great point, and that's what makes it exciting, right? Because you just don't necessarily know how these teams are going to approach the problem and what they're going to end up using. And so the challenge was they have to put this on an embedded device. So now you have to take swap into account, right? Size, weight, and power. And so you have a limited amount of storage that you can use. Also, perhaps the operating system that is running can only support up to a certain version of a particular package, and so or open source tool, right? So
right,
there's all these, I would say, nuances that you have to take into account to ensure that you do end up with a working prototype.
That's fun. Are you able to share what some of the more exciting projects were?
So I would say some of the common tools that were used was YOLO, for example, and OpenCV. So a lot of, I would say, open source computer vision software that's publicly available. I would say a lot of them ended up using that. Also, this was back in June, so I'm also trying to think back to what else. But those are the two things that stuck out.
Is anybody like hacking other drones? So like your drone goes up and it hacks another drone and like pulls it in a botnet drones?
I'd say they didn't have enough time for that.
Okay.
I think they had enough on their mind just trying to get the drone off the ground to begin with. So.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah. But I will say that actually I was really proud of one team, because it was only one team that took cybersecurity into account. And they had used encryption for not just the feed, but also for the data at rest on the device.
Hey, okay. Very good.
Greatly appreciate it, because the reality is, right, many of these types of devices may go into hostile areas. Hypothetically, if it falls behind, enemy lines, they can
self-destruct database, drop
exactly.
everything.
I mean, they can if they obtain the device, there's a lot of forensics information that they can extract off of it, right? Whether it's photos, logs, they can potentially see, hey,
where it launched from.
Exactly, right? And so the fact that this one team was focused on security requirements, I definitely gave them some extra bonus points for that.
That's really fun. That sounds like a fun challenge. I can imagine a lot of people just trying to get it up probably would have been the majority of the challenge. But if you're able to play around with features, that's fun too. But features are always down the line anyway.
Yeah.
What's happening in the future with Dark Wolf Solutions? Do you have a playbook of what'll be happening in the next 5 to 10 years, or 5 years, or 2 years?
Ooh, great question. So what I'll say is this: now that we have graduated from being a small business, we're playing with the big dogs, right? And we want to position ourselves as not only that trusted mission partner, but as that go-to provider for our customers' mission needs, right? So with that, we're going to be playing with a lot of or competing with a lot of the top defense contracting firms, whether it's a Lockheed, a Raytheon, for example, right? And so for us, it's really just trying to identify those strategic opportunities where we can continue making inroads with our existing companies to grow organically, but identifying new customer bases that we're looking to enter into and expand as well. So really excited to see how we grow as a company, but also I'd say on the commercial side, given the success that we're having with Google, being able to replicate that, say, with other customers. For example, Microsoft, they have their cloud platform or partnership program. So continuing working with Microsoft, seeing what's there, continuing to grow with AWS and Azure. So I would say one other thing is that'll be interesting, especially like with this direct to phase 2 opportunity that we have, is exploring how we can potentially create a product portfolio to complement our services. So there's a lot there that we can uncover, but I think that is just another revenue model that is worth seriously considering, right? Yes, we're a services-based company first, but I think that we can augment our services with products to add even more value to our customers.
On the commercial side or on the government side or both sides?
Both. So
ideally both.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
For me, I love making money, so I would love to expand to different customers, whether it's commercial or government. Hey, how can we help?
Yeah, exactly. That's actually funny because now that I'm living in Italy and I've been traveling for a little while, but now that I'm like living in other places and meeting more people, I realize how American I am in terms of like I don't say well, it is capitalism, but more of like I'm just hungry to work hard and make more money. Whilst there's the culture of like, it's okay. Like I live for my life and that's good for me. And I'm like, I can't. I think I'm just too American to accept that.
Well, I look at it this way. It's like definitely mission driven. I mean, it's why I got into this field to begin with. But if I can achieve the mission and make money while doing it, I mean, that's a win-win.
Yeah, I should definitely preface that with, it's there's a million ways to make $1 million, so you have to figure out exactly which ways are fulfilling for yourself, but also to the community and everyone else that you're able to work with. So if it's mission critical, or mission driven, it should be mission driven. Yeah,
absolutely.
I also have this question. So it seems like you guys were able to grow your portfolio from 12 million to $1 billion.
So that was is that
about right?
So that was a previous employer. So we can dive into that if you like.
I would love to know the key factors for scaling those types of efforts there, and like if they've translated over to Dark Wolf or if they've come with you along on your journey.
Yeah, so reached out to about an opportunity with a defense contracting company where they had just landed their first major offensive cyber operations contract with the DoD, right? And they were looking for someone to lead the security research effort, but also help to like grow out that portfolio.
So they won this and they didn't fully have a team yet, is that correct?
So they did, but usually when you win a contract, you have an opportunity to obtain the staff that you need, knowing that, hey, this work isn't going to kick off for another 6 to 12 months. And so there's that anticipation of work coming down the pipeline and we need to start staffing for it. And so in having that opportunity, they had reached out saying, hey, would you consider helping to lead this effort? So it was a no-brainer, and so I joined them. So it was a $12 million contract at the time, and it was also sole source, meaning that it was we had a direct relationship with the customer. There wasn't other primes involved. It was awarded only to us for that effort, and that led to a follow-on work, which was a $30 million contract for another 3 years. And then that led to a full and open opportunity where we received a $50 million contract, but the overarching IDIQ that we had won, it was a multi-award, but it was a $1 billion IDIQ. So that's IDIQ, if you're not familiar, stands for indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. And so that's a type of contract that the government will award when they don't necessarily know the exact quantity of supplies or services that they'll need during the contract period. But it essentially just helps to like streamline the procurement process, where you don't have to reestablish a new contract whenever they want to request additional services. So to go from 12 million to 30 to 50 to that $1 billion IDIQ over 10 years, again, multi-awards, so there were other primes that were engaged, but the key factors in that journey of growing out this DoD OCO portfolio is the importance of like customer intimacy. Really, I would say very early on when we had that sole source contract, of just developing that relationship with the customer. You have their ear the entire time, and so it allowed us to really understand their priorities, their pain points, their immediate needs, as well as upcoming or future needs that needed to be addressed, and being able to share our inputs and suggestions on how we would go about solving them. And then that would lead them to, hey, you know what, we want to work with you on that, we'll cut you a new contract. And so having that understanding, that awareness, even as a security researcher, like usually, like my team, they just want to be on the keyboard, right? They want to be low level. And I totally get it. I've been there, right? But as your career progresses, you start to see the bigger picture to the work that we're doing and having those customer engagements. And so for me, it was just really developing that rapport, showcasing not only that I understood their mission, but that I also cared, and that I was also as compassionate about it as they were. And so it really became this camaraderie of like, hey, how can we work together to make this happen for the warfighter? So I would say that was the biggest takeaway, but also I would say that journey really allowed me to understand the strategies behind writing proposals and knowing what customers look for, what could result in potentially like a non-compliant proposal where you don't end up getting selected or awarded. And so for me, I would say that was definitely a pivotal moment in my career. But at the same time, I also felt like an entrepreneur within a larger company. And so, and being able to leverage, say, the resources of a large corporation, but for the specific effort that we were focused on. Because again, we started out with that one $12 million contract, and being able to grow out to not just multiple contracts, but multi-million up to $1 billion IDIQ contract win is a huge success, and it doesn't happen overnight, right? So, and I would say those lessons learned have definitely carried over to the work that I do here with Darkwolf as well.
Okay, beautiful. You mentioned one thing that I'd like to ask about, and I have another question about the leadership and the people that help present those opportunities to you. The first one being, you said it's very important to understand the customer and their needs and work with them and show them that you care. What are some of the ways that you were able to do that when you were speaking to them?
So, one,
if you can get into it.
I mean, I'm reflecting on it as well, because I've actually never been asked that question before. So thank you for that first time question. Because I do a lot of interviews as well, so this is the first time it's been asked. So what I would say is, one, go to the customer meetings, right? Just showing up.
Okay, showing up, yeah. Step one,
huge.
Show up.
Show up and have a presence, right? Don't be afraid to ask questions, right? Because when you ask a question, they see you, they learn your name, they remember your face. This is when it was in person before, the pandemic, and we all started working, remotely with our cameras off. But, right. So yeah, first and foremost, show up and show an interest in what the customer is discussing. Oftentimes the customers would come down for a multi-day event, right? Usually we're doing some type of review process, whether it's like a system design review, or, going over like system requirements review. But oftentimes they love coming down to Florida. So when they come down, we'll go out for lunch together. So I will actually go out to to lunch with the customer. Or I would even say, hey, you guys are in town for a couple days. Rather than just going back to your hotel, our program would like take them out to dinner, right? And so it's after hours, it's after work. I'm going to that customer dinner. It's not required. Of course, it's like strongly encouraged, but oftentimes there's this misconception of like, oh, it should only be like the program manager and the customer, right? Or, oh, maybe it should just be like the chief engineers or the technical leads that go. But the employees are also welcome to join as well. And so it might not seem like a big deal, but even going to those after-hour engagements with the customer goes a long way. Because again, that's another opportunity to hear from them, but also you get to learn, you get to know who they are outside of work, right? So you get to learn about their families.
That's very important.
You get to learn about their hobbies. A lot of people like to brew their own beer, for example. And so next time they come down, I'm asking them, hey, what's the next batch of beer that you brew, right?
Actually, I want to jump in because I remember that when we first started our conversation, we were first meeting, you had said that you had visited and come over here to Italy with your husband,
right? For our 10-year anniversary.
You really enjoyed the wine, yeah. So you're not here yet, but I have a bottle. Nice. This bottle is made by my wife's grandfather, who has a vineyard, had a vineyard for generations. So
awesome.
We'll be able to send you a bottle if
that's amazing. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Would love to send that out to you. We got to figure out how to get over to you, but we'll figure that out. But
no, I appreciate that.
Of course, but I think you're 100% right with learning those hobbies and learning more about the individuals themselves. So
yeah, so essentially all those interactions, they add up, right? And they just don't see you as yet another company or yet another
a vendor. They see you as a partner.
Exactly. Yeah. And so whenever something comes up, the first people they're going to call is us, right? And so just taking the time to build that relationship with the customer is key to working in this industry, especially with the federal government.
Okay, excellent. And then the other thing that you had mentioned was that you were working within a bigger company, but you still felt that you were still able to be an entrepreneur and be able to take the branding and the naming of them and go out there and win businesses. So my question is, did you have somebody in that company that was inspiring you and pushing you as like a leader to say like, here, take our brand and go out there? Or was it kind of like, here's a job, bye? Like, was there anybody to guide you on that?
Yeah, I would say I definitely had developed great mentorships while I was at that employer, and we still speak today. One of them is now retired, so I'm very happy for them. But I would say because I demonstrated great performance on the job, but also I had showcased interest in what they were doing and asking questions, and just really, for me, one thing I found, it goes a long way just asking, hey, how can I help? Because you just don't know what opportunities that's going to lead to. And so, for example, a proposal was coming up, and the lead proposal writer was working on it, and I was just like, hey, how can I help? And pretty much he like took me under his wing, and I learned a lot from several of them. But through that, I would say through those interactions, it really shaped what I do today with respect to business development, proposal writing, developing customer relationships, identifying strategic partnerships. And I definitely would, I give a huge shout out to all my mentors throughout my career. It's been 18 years. There's been a lot of mentors along the way.
Any names you want to shout out? Anybody you know? Top of the head?
Well, I would say this, like, I don't want to not name someone and get someone off the list, but you know who you are, so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because it really has had a significant positive impact on my career. But I would say that by demonstrating a commitment to the work, and for me, I hold myself to high standards, and so knowing that I'm putting out superior quality work allowed them to entrust me to take on more opportunities, right? So eventually it became, hey, I'm now leading the proposal, right? Or I'm now serving as like the technical architect for the technical volume. So it definitely, again, doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But, I definitely have learned the phrase, like, if you want to go fast, travel by yourself. If you want to go far, let's travel together. So, I'm definitely indebted to my mentors.
I think there's also that quote. It's the way, oh man, I'm going to butcher it so bad. It's something about being on the shoulders of giants. If I'm...
Yeah, standing on the shoulders of giants.
If I'm able, because I'm able to go so far is because I was able to stand on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great. Now, I would love to hear more about you and your life. So, we'll go back a little bit, and then we'll come back forward and stuff like that,
sure,
and talk about the different types of businesses and entrepreneur stuff that you've done. So, you had mentioned the Oregon Trail, that you were restricted from, I think, school or education, that you weren't allowed to play at a specific time, and you're like, I'm gonna bypass this, and you were able to get past that.
It was during recess. So we had a computer lab in our classroom. They were usually unlocked, but this one particular day during recess, they weren't, and I wanted to play Oregon Trail. And the teacher was also on break because it was recess, and I was like, well, I was not expecting to be prompted by a lock screen. So being naive as a kid, I was like, well, I'll guess the password.
You guessed the password correctly, and then were you able to play at Oregon Trail?
Yeah, so I got to play Oregon Trail. I probably died from dysentery, as we all do when we play the game.
As we all, yeah. So my question wanted to be, outside of security and everything, just the game dynamics. What role did you pick when you started off? Do you remember?
I don't.
Profession?
I don't. If I went back to the user guide, I probably might remember. But yeah, I mean, as a kid, again, being very young in elementary school, just picking any character and trying to cross the river without drowning or not dying.
Everyone just dies. Yeah, I remember distinctly. I picked the banker because I'm like, cool. I'll just buy all the stuff I need, and I don't think I bought any medicine, and everyone's just dying. And then I think
holding on to all the money.
Yeah, I was like, well, at least I won't die of being poor. I don't know. I was like, we'll just buy the guns, buy the food and everything, and buy my oxen. I had everything because I bought it, but I think it literally took 15 or 20 years to me realize maybe I should just be a doctor, and then everything was fine.
Well, it's like well, that could have led you going into Wall Street, right? Or actually becoming a banker, but.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a good game. I tried to hack. It was kind of like the same
game
thing
mods
on our computers at schools. Well, I have my first podcast episode. I talk all about the game mods. I was just downloading every single hack for every game I had, and just blowing my dad's computer up, just breaking it consistently.
Sure, I'm sure you got a couple malware packs along the way.
Oh, it broke down. He's like, why did it break? I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea why this thing broke. I just downloaded a thing from a game and I just wanted to play.
Right.
Now it's broken. Yeah, it was the worst. I know I just downloaded a bunch of malware always. And,
yeah.
Probably not a good thing, but
good times.
It was, well, whoever was on my dad's computer, I'm sure they were having fun. But yeah, so I would love to talk more about different types of entrepreneurship journeys and ventures and things that you've done. So other businesses that you've started, and even just the ideas of this would be a cool business, but then you wait a little bit longer with that thought and you're like, no, never mind. Like, do you have any like good stories of things that you want to create or still want to create and that are going out there?
Yeah, so I mean, I've explored a variety of, I would say, different side hustles, right? So
Yes.
Now, I will say this, like, I didn't really realize it until thinking back on it, but I've been an entrepreneur ever since I was a kid.
There we go.
And
stories.
Yeah, stories.
You have a story.
Stories, right? So, not many people know this, but I grew up in a low-income neighborhood, right? Financially poor, but culturally rich. And
Beautiful.
With that, at a very young age, just, again, having the personality of wanting to help. Like, I wanted to help out my parents, right? And so the first ever service, because I didn't necessarily formally create the business, but the first business I felt like I created for myself. I called it Swifter Sweeper, and it was a neighborhood cleaning service.
Nice.
And this is back in the day where we had, Clippy in Microsoft Word, right, with the clip art, right? We're going way back. And so I created the marketing flyers. I created a contract. So I had like my composition notebook with like a Sharpie writing out the contracts. I had my parents review it.
How old were you at the time?
I was in elementary school. So like 7 or 8.
7-year-old coming up with contracts.
And so essentially I wanted our neighborhood to have clean streets, right? I wanted to walk out of my front door and see that we lived in a clean neighborhood. So I would charge like $5 to sweep like the front sidewalk and patio area of my neighbors. When it would snow, right, I would charge more than $5 to shovel the snow off their property. And then in middle school, got more serious about it, and I was like, I don't like physical labor, so I learned that very quickly as a kid. And because I was doing quite well in my classes, a parent came up to me and was like, hey, would you mind tutoring my son? And I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. We can do like summer tutoring classes so that come the new school year, he's good to go. And so I called that business Fun for Knowledge, right? Because I love teaching. I learned that at a very young age as well. And so I was like charging $20 a session. Which, as a kid, that's good money. But at the time, I didn't really learn yet about saving money, right? And so the money I earned, I would just go to the corner store, get my Sprite, my pack of Big Red, and like a strawberry shortcake ice cream, and I was living the life.
There you
right?
go. Yeah.
I didn't have to ask my parents for money. I could just get whatever I wanted. I quickly realized like I blew $50 on like junk food as a kid, like my first time making money. Again, $50, I thought I was rich, right? But that was just the beginnings of having this entrepreneurial mindset. And then we'll fast forward, after working in the defense industry for like 10 years, I was just getting burnt out. I was revisiting the idea of being an entrepreneur, of how can I take my technical expertise and experience and create a business around it. So I just started reading business books and entrepreneurial books.
Which books are we talking? I love hearing the book
Yes,
stories.
I have my bookcase like right in front of me. I would say the number one book I really like is The Personal MBA.
Okay, yes. I haven't heard this one. I'm so happy I haven't heard this one.
The Personal MBA. That book is a game changer. And
is it dated?
I think they did come out with a new one.
You feel it's dated. Okay.
I would say with any business book, the principles are so common that what was taught, decades ago are still relevant today. Granted, the industry is a bit different with social media and things like that. But yeah, I'd say The Personal MBA.
By Josh Kaufman?
Yes, that sounds about right. I'm like looking over my, yeah, that's it. Yep. Extreme Ownership, just for leadership, which is important for, leading a business. I'd say those are the top ones. Yeah, so after 10 years in the industry, took a sabbatical and an opportunity just materialized where I was leading a startup, teaching kids how to code as a CTO. That was a very...
You teaching them assembly? What are you teaching them?
So yes, actually, no, a little bit.
Really?
So we were teaching them Python. We would teach elementary up to high school. So for the elementary students, they're learning Scratch, right? It's like drag and drop, different, programming primitives to build out a larger program. And then middle school, they're learning Python, for example, as well as going into high school. But what was great was that we were also teaching them cybersecurity. So there's the Cyber Patriot, for example, which is a cyber defensive competition, but for middle schoolers and high schoolers. It's a way to groom the next generation of cybersecurity professionals. And so we were top in the state, number 1 in Florida.
Nice.
So being able to teach them like ethical hacking, cryptographic principles, as well as a little bit of assembly here and there. But I loved it.
Are they doing CTFs as well?
Yeah, well, I would say in preparation for Cyber Patriot, there were like different CTF exercises, but not like full blown. I will say I did introduce them to Pico CTF. So
okay, I like Pico. I think Pico's a very good entry level explanation.
Yeah. So that was a very rewarding experience and really threw me into the deep end of learning how to like bootstrap a company and applying what I was reading to actual like real world scenarios and running this business. So, but of course the defense industry pulls you back in. So went back and did that. But I will say one thing I was really proud of was getting seed funding for a phase 1 cyber with NSF. So that was my first introductions to cybers. And of course not the last since we've been talking about them, but I would say went back into the defense industry, and I just find that there's these periods where it's like, hey, it's good to take a break from the defense industry and get exposure to other things. So I would say the next thing was when the pandemic happened, it was a great opportunity to reevaluate, hey, what do I want to do, right? And I was like, I don't want to work in a SCIF, right, a secure facility during the pandemic. There's like no windows, poor air ventilation. This is not a good recipe for this situation. So found an opportunity to join a remote startup. It was a Series A VC-backed company. So it was like my first, I would say, real commercial experience, and just seeing what it's like to work with the VCs in that type of climate. And that later led to working with a firm that was private equity owned. So it's been interesting going from, I would say, like as an entrepreneur, running companies in these different environments, serving different customers, whether it's kids in the education stakeholders or VCs, for example. It's definitely been a very unique and diversified career journey. So, yeah. You
mentioned the seed funding part of it, that you were able to raise seed funding. Can you go into that part a little bit more? Yeah,
so we were approached by someone in our network saying, hey, you should really consider this upcoming cyber opportunity. It's just a phase 1 where you can pitch an idea and get it funded. So what we pitched was essentially a learning platform that would be co-created with teachers and students. So rather than developing a platform in a silo and then trying to sell it to educational partners, it's like, hey, if we're going to build this from the ground up, we want to get that feedback from students, parents, teachers, so that includes the features that they actually need, as well as will help to accelerate their learning. So incorporating gamification, for example, to incentivize the kids, because they don't want to feel like they're learning, right? Or that yet they're in class.
No, gross.
They just want to play games and have fun. So we just went through the process of putting together a proposal of what that could look like, and there's like different stages of review where they were down selecting submissions, and we were notified that we were selected. So very, very, I would say, again, interesting experience. It wasn't something that we had sought out. It was, brought to us as something to consider exploring. And it was definitely an interesting experience.
Did the business pan out? Did you guys sell it, or is it still ongoing? Or
I believe it's still ongoing. At the time, it's where the defense industry pulls you back in, and so that's where I moved on and joined that defense contracting firm to build out their DoD OCO portfolio. So.
Nice. And do you have anything in the works for other types of side hustles or things that you're working on now, or diversifying investment portfolio, whatever? That's just exciting that you like to raise money or make more money. So is there anything else that you're working on?
Well, I say why am I doing side hustles? Besides just having that inherent desire to do so, starting out as a kid, it's more of I came across Mr. Money Mustache back in 2013.
Yeah, so you mentioned that in the last episode, and I looked it up, and I still don't understand what it is. Maybe you'd be able to give a little pitch on it.
Yeah, so Mr. Money Mustache, that's we'll call it his avatar, right? But essentially, he is a father out in Colorado who retired early to spend more time with his family, right? And essentially he has been, we'll say, one of the key figures in the FIRE movement, right? Financial Independence, Retire Early movement. And so he was definitely, I would say, maybe ahead of his time, but definitely a trusted advisor in the FIRE community of different ways in which you can position yourself to retire early, or he also discusses different scenarios, hey, if you don't have kids, here's things to consider. If you do have kids, here are other tracks that would be appropriate. But it really got me thinking about the lifestyles that we live, how we handle the money that we earn, how we spend our time. And so pretty much in 2013, I was like, you know what? I do want to retire early. Why not? Yes, it is I'd say, status quo to work until you're, 65. Maybe you might be able to retire early at 59 and a half, but I was
right,
we can do better than this, right? And the way of doing that is to diversify your income streams, right? Many people just have a single income. Usually they're the one employer that they're working for. Maybe they don't have the opportunity to have both spouses working, right? Having that dual income. So right now, my husband and I were dual income, no kids, also known as DINKs. But
there's a name for it?
There's a name for it.
Nice. Cool.
But yeah, so through that led me to just figuring out other ways in which I could earn passive income, or to diversify. So writing a book was one way of doing that and earning royalties.
Yes. Tell me about the book. Tell me how long it took, the idea around it. I think I mentioned earlier, I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast, but I tried to write a book. I got as much as an ebook, and it was I think it was 10 pages or something. And I was like, I gotta spend a lot of time on this. So I want to hear about the book as well.
Yeah, so I actually wrote a financial book, and people are like, what? Finance? You're a cybersecurity expert. Yes, and yes.
Yes, and yes.
I was just completely immersed in my work, whether security research by day, CTFs by night, and I just needed something else so that I just didn't completely burn out. And it's also good to have other hobbies that aren't directly tied to your work for mental health, right? So
I agree 100%, and I will always vouch for that. You gotta have, it's that thing when a mechanic comes home from work, the last thing he wants to do is work on his car. So.
Right, yeah, even as a chef, right?
Yeah.
So I decided so my mom had encouraged me to write a book one day. I decided to write about financial advice.
Literacy?
Financial literacy is a way of putting it. Because at that point, right, it's 2015, a lot of people were wondering hey, how did you pay off your student loan so quickly? How did you get involved with investing? So I was I'm going to take my knowledge and my experiences, I'm going to consolidate it into a book and just release it out to the world.
Nice. And this book is called Master Your Money, Stop Yearning and Start Earning. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
We'll link that as well. Yeah.
The audiobook is amazing. I love the narrator that we hired for it. Yeah. So I wrote the book 6 weeks. So essentially
It took 6 weeks?
6 weeks to write the book. Yeah.
Are we talking 40 hours?
So what I would do is before work, I would put in like an hour or two. And then after work, I would put in another hour or two. And then on the weekends, I would just write until I would get too tired to write more. Yeah. So essentially it's like if I didn't have a CTF going on, that time was spent writing the book. So
maybe 20 hours a week then, if you're doing...
I think that's fair. Anywhere from, I would say anywhere from 10 to 20 hours a week.
It's for 6 weeks, 120 hours. Okay.
Yeah, I actually never did the math, so it's very interesting doing this in real time.
Yeah, I'm very much interested because I'm like, how many? Because for me, I think it took me. I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about for mine. So the book and things that I wanted to create was going to be just the joy of learning and like how to learn like anything and like how to take the approach to learning things. So
nice. I would. Different. I am the type of person that would read that type of book.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah.
And so pretty much I just created an outline of what I wanted to discuss. Of course, I had to do research. I wanted to be backed by primary sources and things like that. But yeah, essentially it just walked you through different topics, the importance of saving money, and how, like, I wanted the book to be actionable. So like I had a checklist at the end of each chapter so that you could apply what you've learned and actually see the progress of working towards becoming more financially literate, but also working towards financial independence and setting yourself up for early retirement. So that was definitely an interesting journey. I self-published through Amazon. They have what's called Create Space. And essentially you just upload a PDF of your book. And I went on Fiverr, got the narrator for the audiobook, hired an editor to make sure spelling and grammar is correct, and also hired an illustrator to design the cover of the book as well, and then uploaded it to Create Space. And what's great about that is it'll push it out to, so also on the Kindle platform, push it out to Kindle. If you want a physical copy, Create Space will handle all the distribution for you. And then, of course, with Audible is where you can get the audiobooks. So yeah, definitely interesting experience. So that was released in 2015. We're coming up on 10 years, so I might put together a 10-year anniversary version because a lot has changed in our world with respect to finances and just the world we currently live in and how to adapt to that for financial independence and early retirement. So we'll see. It might be in the works.
Yeah, that'd be great. I read a book, I don't know how to say it. It's Gary Vee's book.
Oh, Gary Vee, yeah.
His book goes into like influencers and like people that are creating things. And there's this one lady, she was like, did sewing or something like that, had a blog, and a lot of people wanted to come. So she created conferences around it. So maybe if you get enough people that are interested in your stuff, you can start hosting conferences and have people come out and do workshops and things.
So I actually did.
Yeah?
So at the time, it was a virtual summit.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, and so I had reached out to different, I would say, speakers, but also other individuals that are involved in personal finance. Also, those that were running their own side hustles, and just brought them all together for a virtual summit. Had about like an hour podcast interview with each of them, and then released it over time. So we covered a variety of different topics with that as well. So essentially the idea was take the book and then, okay, how can I repurpose it for other passive income opportunities? So with the virtual summit, people had to buy tickets to get access to the event. And then from there, created a Udemy course around it, which still get, royalties from as well. So it's just interesting to see kind of how I wouldn't say snowballed, just how it evolved over time from that one idea of writing a book. And then that also led to being like a guest speaker at universities. And it was definitely a eye-opening moment of how I could essentially create my own business from a simple idea.
Yeah. I mean, a simple idea. Yeah, writing a book is a tremendously great.
Well, the simple idea is like, hey, I should write a book. Then the next question is like, how? What did I just sign myself up for?
Yeah. I'm the guy, I think one of my weaknesses is like, I put myself in an analysis paralysis. I'm like, oh, let me write a book. But first I need to read 5 books on how to write a book. And then I'm on the 3rd book. I'm like, damn it. Like, I don't know what to do now. There's 3 different opinions of what I should be doing now. And I just get stuck.
Yeah. And that's when you say yes to one thing and you're saying yes to many things.
Yeah, exactly. So do you have any other books that you plan on like writing or stuff like that? If it's going to be this one to Mastering Money, or if it'll be another?
So I do want to write a technical book.
Like get published by No Starch Press or something else?
Yeah, whether it's through No Starch Press, Wiley, or some other company. I did like the self-publishing experience because I felt like I was in control of it. And so I could like play by my own schedule and go at my own pace. But hey, if any of the publishers are listening to this, if you're interested in working together, we can maybe write a book together one day, right? But I would like to write a technical book. The question becomes, given that I've been exposed to a variety of things throughout my career, what that could potentially look like, especially with how rapidly evolving technology has become. And even like with security research, for example, it's very easy for technical content to become immediately obsolete. So,
right.
Yeah.
I honestly think I'll be honest, like you're 100% right. You're 100% right that it becomes like obsolete way quicker. I think maybe like the writing of the technical book, the biggest value is not the fact that the content will be like immortal, but the fact that it puts you in a position where you are the expert in that moment, in the beginning of the origin. So, while you've done a lot of research around drones, I don't know if there's any books about hacking drones or anything. So if you're like the first to market and be the first book, it's almost as if you're the first person to write the art of hacking in that area, or the first person to write the hacking cars and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Right? It puts you on it builds your branding so high up on that mark when there's nobody else that has done it and there's no additional proof. It's like, well, this person wrote a book, and more people will recognize a book than a blog post on Frack.
That's true. Yeah. And you also get to serve as that thought leader, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
The industry. Yeah, absolutely.
We've talked about different types of entrepreneur things in terms of books and stuff like that. Do you have any investment advice that we can legally bind you to for anything that you want to give advice on?
What I would say is invest in yourself. That's what's. Yeah. I won't take that as like a cop-out answer, but definitely like when you invest in yourself, it opens up so many more opportunities. As someone that teaches offensive security trainings at different conferences, which is yet another side hustle, it's. At first it might seem expensive, like, oh my God, this training is $1,000 or $5,000. It's all relative. But making that investment is going to have a much significant return, whether it's, being able to land a new job or position, right? It might lead to a promotion, or it could just lead to other career opportunities to help, expand your knowledge, skills, and abilities. So first and foremost, invest in yourself. So,
and in regards to the paying for learning, different types of learning and workshops and courseworks and stuff like that, I highly recommend, my 2 cents in advice would be that you also network, speak to everybody in the class, all the other students, network with the instructors as well, and then talk about how you're learning it on all the platforms everywhere else, because you never know who's going to be listening and like, oh, I didn't think this person would be interested in this, but now that I know that they are, maybe there's another opportunity I can connect them with. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, even like for me, I'm always like, it's important in my role to stay on top of the latest technologies. And so I'm looking at not only my teaching trainings, but I'm also looking at other trainings to take as well, that I know, hey, this is going to be an important topic in the next, say, 6 months or so, I need to start getting more exposure and becoming well informed about it, so that, hey, if I see that proposal opportunity come out, I can definitely like speak to it, for example. Or maybe like one thing with the trainings is that you're going to get access to like those instructors' tools and techniques, but you get to see like how they're approaching problems that you can then take back and implement as well, right? So yeah, a lot of many benefits of investing in yourself and attending these different, we'll say, paid training opportunities. As far as other investments, I would say to each their own, but just invest what you're...
I was kidding, you don't have to go into the business side.
I just say invest in what you're comfortable with and what you understand. That I'll say that.
Just crypto, 100%. Go to the fringiest coin and just throw your money there.
I highly unofficially recommend Dogecoin. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, the funny thing is it did grow at a certain point when Elon Musk like promoted it, and then it like blew up, but
to the moon.
To the moon, yeah. But in terms of education platforms and training courses, you were one of Umit Aksu's first student graduates for Mobile Hacking Lab. Is that correct?
That is correct. I am the first certified Android exploit developer as endorsed by Mobile Hacking Lab. So very proud of that. I was actually surprised because I took the exam much later in the year. So I was very, very excited by it. It was definitely a challenging exam. Went through the VRE roller coaster during the 48 or 72 hour exam period. But I would say for anyone that's interested in getting into Android security research, which is learning about additional tools and techniques, definitely check out Mobile Hacking Lab because they're doing great things over there.
Yes, I'm currently a student right now. I'm going through the application reverse engineering for the Android ones right now and playing with Corellium's tool.
Nice.
It's very interesting. I was even trying to virtualize some of the environments using Gray Motion as well as Android Studio, but I think they're running on the x86 64 architecture, so I couldn't even install the APKs.
Well, so for that, because we use Genymotion as well, there is an ARM extension pack for Genymotion.
Is it in the community Gray Motion version?
Yeah, it's publicly available. I will send you the link where you can get it. But once you get that, it'll allow you to install ARM applications for your x86, x64 machine.
Okay, great. You can't imagine, I'm just on, Mob SF, putting in the apps, and I'm, creating all these different devices. I'm why isn't this working? And I'm I run, UNAM and check that it's a x86. I'm ChatGPT, why this? And it's well, you got to find one that's ARM. I'm okay, great. So I got to go find something else.
But as you're going through the course, definitely use the Corellium devices. And
yeah, I love Corellium. It's a terrific platform for mobile research. Definitely check that out as well. I'm very excited to continue with that training and such. So yeah, then I'm getting into the userland stuff and fuzzing kernel stuff. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see okay, now I know more about the applications. Now let's get deep.
Sweet. Yeah, I do have the Android kernel certification that they have in my sites. So that'll probably be an end of year goal as well.
Okay. Did you do the userland one as well?
Yeah, I did the userland and fuzzing exploitation class. Yeah. Okay,
cool. Yeah, that's gonna be my next one as well. So we talked about books. We talked about you creating Udemy classes. How long did the Udemy class take? Did that take a month, a week? To shoot the content and create the materials and stuff?
So usually when I'm creating a course or training, if you think of a full day's worth of material, 8 hours, usually it takes about a week to create a day of material.
Damn.
So it does take some time, but I don't recall how long that took, but I do clearly remember taking a Udemy course on how to create a Udemy course.
Okay, yeah.
And it was like a 5-day boot camp. So I just went through that, and that definitely accelerated the process. But I think it came out shortly thereafter, so not too long after releasing the book.
And are you getting more revenue from the book, or are you getting more revenue from the Udemy courses?
For comparing those two, I'd say the book, but I would say what I've gravitated more towards and where I spend my time outside of work is the offensive security trainings. I'd say that has been the model that I prefer because it's more flexible, has a higher price point, and I can do that like on my own time.
And when you do that, are you representing Dark Wolf Solutions? Or are you representing yourself when you go out to them?
So it depends. Usually if I'm just serving as an instructor with a conference that I've been teaching at, prior to Dark Wolf, usually, I have my own like LLC for that. And because of course, like as you're teaching offensive cyber materials, if someone's laptop like blows up for whatever reason, I don't want to be liable, right?
It's always good to put everything in an LLC regardless, but yeah, that's the very valid reason, yes.
And so, yeah, I've been, teaching at security conferences since 2018. And so for that,
nice.
Essentially moonlighting, that'll be my own thing. But for new opportunities that come up where they're approaching Dark Wolf, then I'll support those training events as Dark Wolf. So like the Black Hat Autonomous Arcade, the DEF CON drone hacking workshop with Aerospace Village, that was facilitated by Dark Wolf.
Okay. And then for the trainings and stuff that you provide, do you go to the event organizers for different types of conferences and say, hey, I'd like to give a training and go through a process? So
usually they will put out, similar to accepting a CFP, yeah. Some will call it a CFT, call for trainings. Others will just have it under the CFP umbrella for call for papers. But you just indicate, hey, I want to offer a workshop. And given that there's so many conferences that are happening, it's hard to teach at every one of them, let alone attend them, right? And so I pretty much like narrowed it down so that it's not distracting from the work that I'm doing at Dark Wolf, but also I realize I need to have a good work-life balance. And so, as much as I would love to go teach at another conference, I kind of weigh that against, hey, is that an opportunity where I can actually just, spend time with my husband, spend time with family and friends, or maybe just get some more rest, right? Because I travel a lot for work also. So I pretty much have narrowed it down to, teaching anywhere from 2 to 4 times a year. And it's usually with with conferences that I've already have a relationship with.
Okay. And then the material and stuff like that you do when you give your coursework, it's offensive security. Is it around mobile research or is it around drones or what's around?
So I teach a variety of classes. Like, for example, we have B-Sides Orlando coming up on October 18th. For their workshops, and the conference is on the 19th. I'll be teaching software reversing made easy using Ghidra. So introducing people to how they can go about reverse engineering software, introducing them to Ghidra. Earlier in the year, I usually, every year I'll teach machine learning for reverse engineers. So given the rapidly evolving advancements in AI, ML, just showcasing how we can leverage the different concepts, principles, and algorithms and apply that to reverse engineering a binary, whether that's accelerating the process, helping to automate, identifying key features that we want to extract, maybe for vulnerability discovery, whether to determine if that binary is malicious or not, or for a variety of other reasons. It's been a very interesting field.
Do you have them create their own machine learning models, or is there plugins and stuff like that you can say these are the things we want to look at, and here's how to create the features and run? Yeah,
so I teach them. So with the, I'd say, machine learning pipeline, the process that we go through, I show them how they can collect and gather their own data. So what features to extract out of binaries, how to, do the necessary, data pre-processing, and then...
Okay, yes, the science behind it, I like it.
Yeah. And then from there, depending upon how much data we have, when to determine to apply the dimensionality reduction techniques, because you don't need to analyze every single feature. So how do we reduce it down to improve the performance of the machine learning model? And then we'll go through different types of algorithms. So we'll cover unsupervised machine learning, supervised machine learning, neural networks. We'll talk about transformers and ChatGPT, for example. But the idea is you're leveraging existing machine learning packages, like software packages, whether it's like scikit-learn, for example, because you don't have to create these models from scratch, but you can leverage these existing libraries to create your own ML system so that it's analyzing what you want and you're getting the results that you're looking for. So it's like, how do we apply these tools and techniques to their particular, say, binary analysis problem?
That's super interesting. I gave a workshop in San Francisco SF Python group on machine learning, on how to use TensorFlow,
exactly,
and, how to determine if somebody had diabetes based on like some data. And like I gave it was like the room must have been like 150 people or something like that. And I gave everyone. There was a lot of people. I think it's just because the group was big. I don't think they actually cared for my talk. I think they just wanted to get food, whatever. It was at Twitter. It was at Ukta or something like that. But yeah, I think it was just for the free food. And like, I'm like, okay, here's all the materials if you guys want to follow along. And like, I think like 5 people downloaded the materials, and like nobody could keep up. And I was like, maybe this is too complicated to explain it in like an hour presentation or something. But I tried my best. But it's great that it's over a few days you explain the science of and the algorithm, the formulas behind like what are the features, and then which ones are more important to focus on, and then run it. That's super.
And like we go into like how the algorithms work, how they're designed, when you should use one algorithm versus another. Which
ones versus the other ones?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Brilliant.
That way they have a really more than a good understanding of how it all works, so that they can confidently take it back to their work on their projects or side projects. That's like I have it hands-on throughout the entire like 4-day course. I can extend it to 5, but usually a lot of the conferences are moving to that 4-day format. But yeah, for me, I want my students to feel confident in what they're learning, the tools that they're applying, because they pay good money for it, right? So yeah, I want to ensure they're getting that return on investment.
So you mentioned those 2 courses. Are those do you have other courses as well?
I used to teach pretty much modern Linux exploitation, focused on 64-bit binaries. So that's pretty much, I started teaching like Ghidra reversing. That naturally led to doing Linux exploitation. And then I'd say the Ghidra course is something I do recurringly, but with the boom of AI and like Gen AI specifically, I've primarily, like, I'd say my machine learning for reverse engineers has become like my new signature course that I've been offering for past 2-3 years now. So yeah. Uh-huh.
That's super exciting. Do you see more courses that you'll be developing, whether it be through machine learning and AI stuff or something entirely different? So we cram a lot in 4 days. And by the end of it, I can, like, even my head is exploding. So sure. One thing I might do is kind of break out the deep learning, break it out and dive into it more, so that there's just additional topics that we can cover. I try not to fit too much into it, because I know that by like day 3, everyone's exhausted.
Their brain is already fried. I'm like, let's talk neural networks. So,
yeah, we're just getting started. Hope you like the intro, the appetizer. Now we're getting started.
Exactly. Buckle up. But yeah, that's an area I know students have expressed interest in for deep learning. And then, of course, Gen AI has taken everyone by storm, which isn't a subset of deep learning, but that's a beast in itself and could be its own course. So we'll see, right? It just depends upon how much time I have in a day.
Yeah, definitely. So we've spoken about a lot of things today. We've spoken about your journey in terms of how you gained even interest in computers, how it brought it over to cybersecurity, how you've taken all the lessons that you've worked through your different positions as working at bigger companies and being able to take an entrepreneurship and guiding that through and bring all of those over to Dark Wolf Solutions and being able to work on your research there, build out your research team, as well as working on the request for proposals there too, right? Is it that right?
Yep.
And then additionally, all the businesses that you've done in terms of writing books, creating Udemy courses, and even summits that you've created, engaging with people, and the trainings that you've done through all of the conferences that you are attending. Do you have any conferences that you're planning on going to this year or early next year?
So I'll be at AUVSI Defense October 22nd to 24th, B-Sides Orlando October 18th and 19th. And I think those are my two no. I think, I have a Space Power Conference in December.
Are you guys reversing spaceships?
So we work very closely with the U.S. Space Force. And so in partnership with the Space Force Association, SFA, they host the Space Power Conference in December. So it's an opportunity to learn more about the Space Force mission, what they have in the pipeline, and their current, priorities and pain points. So, definitely excited for that. That'll probably wrap up my conferences for the year.
Are you going to Reverse Con? I think that's what it's called.
Recon?
Jordan.
Oh, Reverse. Reverse.
Jordan.
Yeah, the new announcement. That's in February, I believe.
The last week of February.
Yeah.
Jordan was like, I don't know why he picked it for a specific reason. I think it was for the hotels or something like that. But it's like, it's going to be weird because it's like the 28th of February and then it goes into like March 1st or 2nd. Got it.
Yeah, it's definitely on my list. There's also District Con that was recently announced. I think it's the week prior, but it's another security research offensive cyber conference in DC. So my February is already booked up with those conferences, and there's HexCon going on right now over in Paris. I think I wanted to go out to that. That's on my bucket list. That and Offensive Con. Those are the two. Offensive Con is great. I went this year and it was a lot of fun. Really great talks. Got to network with a lot of people too. So it's good. Awesome. Yeah, next time I'm overseas, I have to plan it around those dates. Yeah, definitely. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time here, Hannah. Do you have any other shout outs or things that you want to mention or things that you want to talk about either with your company, with yourself, anything else that's going on? Yeah, I would say if you're interested about opportunities at Dark Wolf and want to join the pack, check us out at darkwolfsolutions.com, as well as if you're a small business interested in potentially partnering with us, reach out. Even if you're not a small business and you're curious about our services in cybersecurity, digital transformation, software DevSecOps, again, we don't bite. Feel free to reach out. Check out our Android Security Research Playbook. It's a way for us to give back to the community. It's free. It's publicly available. Check that out at asrp.darkwolf.io, as well as our Drone Wolf Playbook to learn more about drone security at dronewolf.darkwolf.io. So I'll also give you my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to connect with me and say hi. Once again, Chris, it's been an amazing opportunity. I know you and we can talk all day, but I appreciate really having the opportunity to chat with you on your podcast. Yeah, definitely. I was actually terrified to speak before because when I listened to the episode previously, I was like, damn, they talked about everything I want to talk about. I don't know what I want to talk about, but I'm glad that I was able to figure out some points of conversation that we were able to keep a smooth conversation. It was very easy to chat with you. Absolutely. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you as a guest. So I'll put all of your links and everything that you mentioned inside this podcast episode so everyone can follow you and keep up with you there. So sounds good. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciate you having me. Thanks, Chris. Keep being awesome. Take care. All right. You too. Cheers.